She's been called one of the most powerful women in the world, a description that carries as much controversy as cachet. I'm Femi OK.
And I'm Omar Badar. And today on the stream, an intimate conversation with Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala.
Economist, philanthropist, and a women's advocate. That's just a few of the ways that have been used and words that have been used to describe Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. I'm Femi OK.
Yep, and I'm Omar Badar, and today, besides helping to change Nigerian politics, she's had a huge impact on the World Bank. Now, during her tenure there, she was the first female and black candidate to make a bid for the bank's presidency.
And we are pleased to have Dr. Ngozi right here in our studio. Dr. Ngozi, it's great to have you here.
Thank you, Femi.
Thank you. Going to have the conversation, not just with you, but with some other young women making a difference in their communities around the world. So in Dubai, Ola OREKUNRIN, she is a physician and a founder of the Flying Doctors and also an air ambulance service that's based in Lagos, Nigeria.
And in Johannesburg, South Africa, BUSI MKHUMBUZI. She's a student and an entrepreneur. And in Malaysia, Nurul Azza Anwar, she is the Vice President of the People's Justice Party and a Member of Parliament.
Dr. Ngozi, thank you so much for sharing some photographs with us. So you brought in some photographs. We scanned them very quickly. This has got to be the first one to start with. Have a look on my laptop. How old were you here?
Oh, I was 2+.
Right. So the three words I used to describe you were economist, philanthropist, women's advocate. But personality, when you were a little baby, what was your personality?
Well, I don't know, but I think I was attentive, and you can see me there.
Yeah.
You
look a little stubborn. You look like, I am not doing whatever someone told you to do. You look like, I am not doing that.
Well, I try to call it attentive.
Okay.
I seem to know my own mind, my mother used to say.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I can't remember. I just know that, I seem to know my own mind.
At 2 years old. You grew up for your early years in the village.
Yeah.
Can you paint that picture for us? What was it like?
Well, you know, I grew up in the village because my parents both went to Germany to study, and they were on scholarship, so they didn't have enough money to take me. This was in the 50s, so they left me with my paternal grandmother. And it was, I didn't know anything different, so it was fun, it was hard work, but I had a grandmother who really loved me. And she was a disciplinarian, but you could see the love. And she made sure I did everything. I learned how to cook very early, how to go to the farm, go to the stream to fetch water because there was no running water at the time, how to fetch firewood, all those things, you know, how to prepare. You know, we used to get involved in preparing the main staple, in the country, which is gari, and we would learn how to process and prepare it. So it was, and then I went to the school behind our house. So it was a very happy childhood.
At what point did you know that you were going to be an economist? When did you know that?
I never knew that. I never planned to be an economist. And the reason I didn't plan to be an economist is because my father is an economist. And my father is a mathematical economist. And what happened was when I was 9 years old, I used to read voraciously, and you know, they couldn't keep up. So my father was working one day trying to prepare his lecture notes. And so I said to him, I've finished all my books, I want to go and buy more. And he didn't want to be bothered. So he took this heavy tome from his bookshelf and gave it to me and said, read chapter 1 and tell me what it says after. And it was an economics book. And I couldn't understand what was in it. It was very boring. And I decided whatever that subject was, I was never going to study it.
And that subject was
economics. So I absolutely did not intend to be an economist.
So, you know, we actually got a video comment here from a lawmaker, a member of parliament in New Zealand, asking specifically about the challenges you faced as a woman in that career path. Check it out.
Doctor, you held the role of Minister of Finance in your country not once but twice, and not only was that a first for your nation, but that is a role that is rarely held by women in international jurisdictions. I wondered whether or not you could speak to whether or not gender ever played a role in some of the challenges that you faced in a finance portfolio.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, it was an honor and a privilege to be able to serve my country twice as finance minister. Finance minister is probably one of the toughest jobs you can ever hold in any country. And I think man or woman, the average lifespan of a finance minister in office is about 2 years.
Why?
And it was Gordon Brown, former Chancellor of the Exchequer of the UK, former Prime Minister, who told me that. He had actually calculated it. Because a finance minister, no one likes a finance minister. You're in the business of saying no to most people, including your boss sometimes. So it's a very difficult position. And when you are in, so there's that to contend with. And then when you're a woman, some people may see it as, well, this person is wielding power. And the idea of a woman in some societies having so much, quote unquote, power is not really accepted. So that gender element can come in. You know, for me, it was so interesting because I wish I had seen myself as wielding power. I never felt it. All I felt was all the responsibility of the job, but none of the power. It was like you were scrambling every day to make sure things happened in the right way for the country.
Isa, go ahead.
Hi, I wanted to ask because The Independent basically hailed you as a heroine, not just for Nigeria, but the entire continent, for your bravery and courage in eradicating corruption. I mean, to one point, I read that your mother was even kidnapped in an attempt to silence you. Can you share what were your main sources of inspiration in continuing the fight? Because as finance minister, as you said, a lot of enemies, but more importantly, you know, to be hailed as someone who was very strongly against corruption is no joke. So I think I want to hear from you in terms of, you know, what gave you the courage to do this.
Well, thank you very much. It's a very tough fight, and I must thank my team. You know, you don't do things alone. So I had the support of a team in the Ministry of Finance. The first time I was finance minister, I had the support of an economic team. I had a team in the Ministry of Finance. I had my bosses, the president, the 2 times around. And but it was tough because at the end of the day, you know, you have to have some principles. And I think what gave me a lot of courage was just family. My father, when my mother was kidnapped, was absolutely amazing. I mean, he stood behind me. He inspired. I was so devastated, I couldn't even leave my room, my bedroom. And he left where he was and came to Abuja, knowing that I would be hit. You know, he came and stayed with me and said, I'll stay with you until we know what the news is. And he insisted I had to get up every day and go to work. I couldn't imagine it. You know, you sit there and I often tell people, you want your parents to be proud of you, no matter how old you are. I'm older now, but you still are there. Your parents, you want them to be proud of you, to be happy with what you're doing. So the very thought that you could be the instrument of harm or the instrument of their demise is so devastating. So old as I was there, couldn't get up, but he inspired me. I have to say that. That and the love and support of my siblings, my whole family, everybody just sort of came together a lot behind me, my husband and my children, because they knew what was going through my mind. So that's what helped me.
Let me show you some pictures here because of your family together, because your parents are here, but also your hubby. This is your son, one of your sons, and your dad, and then your mum. How are they doing now? Is your family ever in jeopardy because of your career and the way that your career went in Nigeria?
Well, you know, I never used to think of my family in jeopardy. You know, I love my country so much. I always felt safe there, no matter what. So it was an absolute shock to think that someone would even think of kidnapping my mother. But I think they're okay. I mean, they have some extra security. I mean, since that incident, And there are times when I worry about them, especially my father is not the type who likes going around with a large number of people to secure him. He hates it, actually. But we've had to sort of force him to accept a measure of protection because of what happened.
Yeah. So you mentioned that your father inspired you, and you in turn are inspiring a lot of women in your country. But we have people who disagree on the status of women in Nigeria. So we have Dauda over here who says, with another female replacing her as finance minister, women contribution is on a remarkable increase. Clearly they're seeing progress in the country. But on the other hand, Joseph says about you, she was a lone voice, and sadly a tree doesn't make a forest. Do you view your success as an isolated incident, or do you think that it's part of a trend of women doing better in general?
It's very difficult to tell. You know, in my continent, in Africa, I think women are now more represented in parliaments. I think it's about 24%, you know, overall on average on the continent. Some countries like South Africa and Rwanda, of course, much better, almost 50-50. We have more cabinet ministers than we used to have on the continent, and maybe some more CEOs, but we're still very far from where we need to be. And in my country, sometimes we move forward. Certainly the last cabinet I was in, we were about 35% women, which was almost double the first time I was in cabinet, which was 16%. So we made a great advance. But, you know, now it's not clear. Even in parliament, I think there are fewer women. So I do accept the fact that we have a long way to go. And I'm very eager to see progress because we have amazing women on the continent, and we have amazing young women. I mean, you have some of them on your show. When you see people who are, you know, Ola of the Flying Doctors, people who come up with ideas and entrepreneurship, people who have talent, you know, why don't you mobilize them? You know, there are so many studies that show that if you mobilize women and empower, it's not good to just be in the job and answer a name. You've actually got to have the ability to contribute. You will do so much better as a country in doing that.
Ola, what do you want to talk to Dr. Ngozi about?
I actually am very interested in Dr. Ngozi's view about the situation in the country now. Dr. Ngozi, as you know, things have changed a lot in Nigeria since you were finance minister, and particularly the economy has gone into recession. There's been a huge devaluation in the naira, and I'm quite interested to know, if you were still finance minister, what would your top 3 priorities be for solving the economic crisis in Nigeria right now?
Well, Ola, you know, one of the things you learn as you get wiser is to talk less and leave. You know, I've spent my time, I've contributed the best I could for the country, and I think it's still one of the most interesting countries in the world. And it would be better to leave those who are managing now to say what they would do. But all I can say is that there are solutions. You know, people in the country should not lose hope because I think that there are solutions. Nigeria is a vibrant country. I love it so much, and I know that it's going to come out of this one way or the other. We just need to focus on that.
Dr. Ngozi just basically said no comment in a very, very eloquent way.
I'm so sorry, Ola. I'm usually not.
She's like, I'm not answering that. The whole of Nigeria is like leaning forward. What would Dr. Ngozi do right now? Dr. Ngozi's like, next question.
Femi, I gave 7 years of my life. You
probably have some very good answers, Dr. Ngozi, right? I know that you think about this. Who do you gripe to? Because Nigerians love to talk about politics. Now, I know you're not going to tell me what you talk about, but who do you talk about politics to? When you know that no one's going to leak your thoughts? Who do you, is it your hubby? Who is it? Is it your kids? Who do you like, if Nigeria could only do this? Like, I grew up on that. My dad and my mum used to do that all of the time.
Well,
always
families do that anyway.
Yes.
You know, families,
to your
everybody.
Is it just your family circle that you talk about?
Yeah, but you know, the thing is that I'm not your typical politician. I wasn't even a politician. I went in as a technocrat.
Yeah.
But whenever I say that to friends from Europe or the US, they always tell me, you were a finance minister, so you were in politics, whether you liked it or not.
You avoided that question like a perfect politician.
No,
Can I rephrase the question then?
Ola is not
okay?
giving up.
Ola, I think you got the answer. Yeah, go ahead.
The top impediments are to economic growth on the continent.
Ah, nicely reframed.
Well, I think on the continent, we have seen a period when we were doing relatively well. And it's only in the last 2-3 years things have started to go a bit south. I think what we need to do is refocus on basics, which is on macroeconomic stability. Why do I say that? I know it sounds like so much economic jargon, but we are seeing now that if you don't pay attention to the fundamentals of having, you know, stable and good exchange rate policy, inflation under control, a manageable fiscal deficit, and debt, you know, and so on across the continent. I gave a TED talk where I sort of listed, here are the 6 or 7 things that we did right, and here are about 8 or 9 things we did wrong on the continent.
See, I love that TED talk because you not only said this is what the rest of the world can do, how you can do better by Africa. This is how we as Nigerians, as Africans, can do better for ourselves.
Absolutely.
One of the ones I loved was private foundations coming to the continent and saying, we're going to help you cure this, and we're going to help you do this, and your response was very direct. What was your critique about these private foundations?
Well, you know, it's not so much a critique as saying, look, as Africans, what I'm very proud of is when we have solutions for ourselves, when we find the answer, and then we ask other people to come and support us to implement those things. And I gave some examples. For instance, you know, I used the example of Rwanda and the use of drones. You know, for the African Risk Capacity and Organization, I'm also chair of the board. And I meant Gavi,
right?
Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance,
Sure.
where I'm also chair of the board, where Gavi, in partnership with the government in the lead on this issue, and Zipline and DHL came together to talk about using drones to solve the problem of getting vaccines and medicines to a mountainous area where infrastructure is difficult. And that kind of solution that the country was willing to try and experiment and then getting other organizations to come behind it is one where I think, you know, where Africans come up, take the lead. And I give that as an example in my TED talk, along with the one of the African Risk Capacity and the weather-based insurance, which I also gave as an example. But you know, I think that, you know, you look at organizations like Gavi, which I'm very proud, you know, to be the chair of such an organization whose goal is to vaccinate children around the world, and whose goal is to support governments to come up with solutions to take care of their own programs of vaccines and immunization for their children. And then Gavi comes and supports them from behind. These are the kinds of things. Any organization that will put you in front as solving your problem and then support you, I'm for it.
So you have that, but when you compare that, your answer to Ola a little bit earlier, just 1 second, we'll actually come to you in just a moment. So in your answer to Ola, you mentioned that you did not want essentially to be in a position to criticize because you've already done that for 7 years. But we do have a question here that just came in live from Baba Tunde saying, please ask if she would be willing to serve Nigerians if in Buhari's government if called upon. Are you open to the possibility, if called upon, to take a position that you've had before, to actually re-engage, or is this completely, are you entirely done with that at this point?
I served my country for 7 years. I left jobs 7 years in a row to come and serve, and I think it was a great honor. Even though the experience was so tough, as I said, and so rough the second time around, it's still an honor. However, I'm not the only repository of wisdom. They have other people who know,
so if you got the call, you would probably say no at this point?
Because there are other people who can equally try their hand at running the economy. It's not only one person.
So that would be a no.
I'm having too much fun.
I speak fluent Dr. Ngozi. BUSI, go ahead. What did you want to add?
So I just wanted to ask specifically, going back to the question about women and young people. A lot of us are starting to create businesses that to start, ventures that create solutions and that create employment, because we do know that unemployment is a huge socioeconomic challenge in the entire continent. How can governments sort of come in to assist young women and young people who are starting their own businesses, sort of accelerate that process and help us create more employment?
Well, first of all, I want to commend you and commend all of you. You know, I'm so proud. Here we are with a woman politician, a young woman who is putting her neck out and leading a party. We have a young woman entrepreneur. We have another young woman entrepreneur with something like Flying Doctors. I'm really, really proud. And you make me feel so much hope. You know, so I think that's the way to go. I think that the unemployment situation on our continent is such that I would advise young people not to wait anymore to look for someone to employ them, but to try to create a job for themselves and maybe 5 or 6 other people. And I do think that there's room for the government to try to help. When I was in government, the last time, we actually had a program called You Win, Youth Entrepreneurship with Innovation. And this program was designed to support young entrepreneurs, meaning 40 and below. We raised the age to 45 for women when we did a program for women. And the whole idea was to do a business plan competition. We trained people to write business plans, and then we chose the 1,200 best, and they got grants. And the idea was that they should create jobs. And guess what? On average, each one of these entrepreneurs created, on average, about 9 to 10 jobs. That's tremendous. That's worth it. If you do the cost-benefit analysis, you see it works. The World Bank did an evaluation of this. They also co-financed it with DFID, the British Aid Agency. And they found it to be one of the best programs ever run in the world of this type. Oh. So I do believe there's room for the government to come behind, but not just with grants or credit. Also with training, with support. We started a peer-to-peer mentoring because some entrepreneurs are faster ahead than others. They could counsel the others. We did a mentorship program with established businessmen and women, and it was all very interesting. If you see the goods and the services being offered by these young entrepreneurs, you'd really, really be very proud. Now, one of the things I want to say about entrepreneurship, it's not only about struggle. It's about managing success. Some of the entrepreneurs were making it, but then the business will start falling apart because when you start selling so much or making so much, you don't know how to manage. So also counseling people on how to, on the accounting, the bookkeeping, the sales, the marketing, you know, how to keep on top of your business and not let it fall apart when you're successful. It's very important.
Dr. Ngozi, let me show our audience this picture because I have a lot and I want to share as many as I can before the end of the show, which is coming up here. This picture here, how old are you in this picture?
I'm 19.
What would you tell your 19-year-old self now that you've lived this very vibrant life, and I know there's more to come? What would you have told your 19-year-old self? What advice would you?
I should have enjoyed a lot more when I was 19 than I did. I was quite serious. I was always studying. You know, even though you see with my husband, I had a boyfriend, but I was all about the books. And I didn't have so I would have said, have a lot more fun. There's time for responsibility. So, but I'm not trying to tell people to just run out and be responsible. Have a good balance.
This is your boyfriend back in, what year was this? 19...
This was 1909.
Currently still your husband. Definitely have sticking power.
1970, it was in 1973.
All right. Oh.
74.
All right. 74. This conversation continues, but not here. We are going to go online and we're actually going to go onto Facebook. So Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is sticking around to answer your questions in a very special Facebook Live post show. You will find us at facebook.com/AJStream. Omar and I and Dr. Ngozi and all of our guests will see you in a moment. Don't go away. Thanks for watching, everybody. Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala has been called one of the most powerful women in the world, a description that carries as much controversy as cachet. I'm Femi Oge.
And I'm Omar Badar. Now, besides helping to change Nigerian politics, she has had a huge impact on the World Bank. During her tenure there, she was the first female and black candidate to make a bid for the bank's presidency.
So we're pleased to have Dr. Ngozi here with us on Facebook Live, and joining us are three women making a difference in their communities around the world. So they're going to be talking to Dr. Ngozi as well as you on Facebook Live. In Dubai, Ola OREKUNRIN. She is a physician and founder of the Flying Doctors. That's an air ambulance service based in Lagos, Nigeria.
And in Johannesburg, South Africa, BUSI MKHUMBUZI. She's a student and an entrepreneur. And in Malaysia, Nurul Azza Anwar. She's the vice president of the People's Justice Party and a member of parliament.
So, Dr. Ngozi, what did Garvey say to you to make you take the job? What did they say and you were like, yes, I have to do that job?
Well, Garvey said to me that they are looking for someone with the kinds of skills I have who can help them talk to finance ministers, who can speak that language, who can make the bridge between health and finance. And they also said that they wanted it because they were actually doing something, which I think is fantastic, which is trying to work to a situation where they work themselves out of a job, where a country takes over its program, its financing, its running, everything. And you know this is the dream of development institutions, to work yourself out of a job, but it actually never happens.
Actually, do you know what? I never believed that. And I like the fact that there's an agency that says that. I feel like that their job is to keep themselves in a job, and it worries me about
You're talking like my husband.
Being honest now on Facebook here. It's like, why would they do themselves out of a job? Why wouldn't they want to continue to have that job forever and ever and ever? Which is why I have problems
well,
with
Femi, you know, my husband says that all the time, but let me tell you why. These institutions are full of people who are really there. They're idealistic. They want to help. They are not there because they want to make, I'm not saying it's everybody, I'm saying the majority of people I encountered in my development career are very sincere. They want to help others. And this is one way out. And they recognize that one way of helping is empowering the people to take care of themselves. It's just that it takes so long. Again, I'm not saying it's every single person, but a good number of them. So Angavi is an organization that says, we want to work ourselves out of a job. We actually have a list of about 20 countries where we are trying to phase out in a very good way so that countries can take over their vaccination and immunization programs. And you know, Gavi has immunized over 580 million children in over 73 countries and saved 8 million lives. And so, you know, the idea that they would empower countries to be able to continue doing that for themselves is great.
And for anybody who is not familiar with Garvey's work, it's Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization. Omar.
So we're getting a quite wide variety of questions. So I'll be throwing some things at you here. So we have Neslihan, who tweeted in, asking about corruption. In an ideal world, you can do away with corruption entirely, but we don't live in an ideal world. And there's a question of whether you just want to bring it down to a manageable level. So Neslihan over here asks, is it possible to achieve things like government transparency as well as ending corruption for Nigeria? And if not, why not? What would you say to Neslihan?
Well, you know, let me start by saying that no level of corruption is really acceptable. So we shouldn't persuade ourselves that there's some acceptable level. I know somebody asked me that, you know, were you working for an acceptable level of corruption? And I said, I don't know what that means. You know, but we do accept we live in the real world. And whether it's a developed country or developing, it's there. So the issue is, how do you bring more transparency and good governance so that people can have information? Because I think the more information citizens have, the more they're able to question what is being done by their policymakers. And that tends to have, I'm not saying it stops corruption, but it makes it harder. You also need...
Dr. Ngozi?
Yes.
Sorry, because I was so excited by that perfect answer. I think sometimes when you take a particular position and it's very clear, it's going to give and make society, an impact, give an impact to society. So my question is more, you know, you're not going to join the cabinet anytime soon. I think you made that clear. But how do you ensure that you leave a strong legacy for other younger women to be part of politics. Nigeria has a strong percentage at 24%, as you mentioned earlier, but worldwide, we're only looking at less than 23% from the upper and lower houses of parliament. So my question to you is, how pivotal is training for younger women, for other women, and inculcated with the values, anti-corruption values which you mentioned earlier? How important is that?
I think it's very important. By the way, the 24% was for Africa on average. I think Nigeria's numbers are much less. Training is very important. Encouragement, incentivizing the women, it's not easy. I mean, when you get up to, as a young female, and you want to be a politician or an entrepreneur, there are not too many examples of women succeeding in it. And I'm not just talking about Africa, all over the world. You see women taking a beating in one form or the other when they enter politics. And you have to ask yourself, many of them...
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, whether you are...
That's a painful voice of experience there.
I know you've taken...
Another painful voice of experience.
You've taken a beating, I've taken a beating. There are many women, you know, taking beatings, even in the US, the candidate. It's not easy being a woman in politics. But you've got to be driven. First of all, you need to ask yourself, why are you in it? Then second, you need to, I think training is very important. Just going in without realizing how difficult it's going to be.
Who trained you then, Dr. Ngozi?
I wasn't trained. Like, I didn't even go in as a politician. I don't even think of myself as a politician.
Did you have any idea what you were doing?
I had an idea what I was doing with my job, which is why we were able to successfully turn the Nigerian economy around during the time I was there and experienced 6% on average growth. But in terms of politics, I think that I was too straightforward. I don't think the politicians like me.
What do you mean? What
they don't like me at all.
Let's unpack too straightforward. Unpack that for us. What exactly does that mean in the context of your experience?
Well, I think I think, you know, from what I see of politics and politicians all over, and other women also tell me, you have to be so willing to compromise so many things to fit in.
Principles?
If you have, I went in there knowing I was going into a difficult job. Nobody trained me, but I had certain principles. And I even sat down and discussed those principles with my father, who, thank God, is still alive and still very cogent and gives strong advice. And we discussed it, even within my family. How are you going to behave? It's not when she's in this job, you suddenly start asking her to do this and do that. So I had principles going in, and you know, when you're asked to compromise those principles, it becomes very difficult. But let me tell you, it's also very dangerous. And that's one thing I want to say to you, know, is that it's dangerous. You know, because you don't fit in. You stick out like a sore thumb. So everybody then has a pot shot at you. And if you're, I still believe that in fighting corruption, the most important thing you have to do is go beyond just the individuals to institutions. And that dawned on me during my first stint as finance minister. I noticed that, look, we don't even have the financial systems in place to stop people from taking money. We were dealing in cash. We were moving cash around.
So the finance ministry in Nigeria was dealing in cash?
No, meaning that we were transferring money to agencies. Instead, we had no electronic platforms. So when I saw that, the first thing in 2005 was to say to the president, then at that time was President Obasanjo, look, and get his support so that we could ask the World Bank to come and help us. DFID, you know, the USAID, all of them pitched in for us to develop electronic platforms, and they take time. So we started in 2005. It sort of stopped when I left. I came back, I found one of the reasons I went back was I realized that these things might never get to a point of no return. So I went back and we set up, I just want to tell you, we set up an integrated personnel management system, IPIS, to enroll civil servants with biometrics so that people couldn't smuggle in fake civil servants. You know, it still was not 100% complete when but we got to a point of no return. Believe me, we found over 60-something thousand fake civil servants, saving the country about $1.1 billion in the process.
You know,
we put together a financial management platform so that electronically Treasury and the Budget Office could transfer money and the departments and agencies between each other instead of sending cash to agencies who would now use it to do their thing. We put into place a Treasury single account so the finance minister could have an overview. We were in the process. We implemented up to 75% of these things. And I'm very proud that today the present government is building on those systems.
Dr. Ngozi, does anyone ever interrupt you?
Not when I get going.
No, actually, we're getting commentary specifically on what you're talking about. You went back because things were not self-sustaining. You mentioned the economy did so well when you were there, and we've got a lot of tweets from people who are saying things got worse after you left, which raises this question that just came right now live on Facebook Live from Mac, who says, how can we ensure continuity in government programs and projects in the African continent? How do you get it to the point to where what the progress you make is self-sustaining and doesn't just wither away when the people who implemented it go away?
Two things. Well, I believe in systems, and that's why I was not letting you cut me off, because building these systems, they're there now, and the present government is using them. I'm really proud of that. I'm very happy. However, I'll tell you one thing that is very difficult on the continent, and I think I mention it now and again. We don't, in many countries, have a social compact. A social compact is when in a country, everybody agrees that no matter who comes to power, certain things must continue to be done to put that country forward. Everybody agrees on it, no matter whether it's left, right, or center in terms of the political configuration. Everybody agrees that, say, diversification must continue, and you must take off from where the last government left off and continue it. When you have a social compact, it becomes easier. So you may...
How do you get to that point?
It needs a conversation in the country. It needs dialogue. It needs discourse. I'm sorry, there's no easy way. I don't even have the answer. I'm just telling you what I noticed, that countries where people agree that certain basic things have to be done in certain ways, no matter what, then whoever comes to power, you know, those things just continue in another guise. Even in the UK, you know, whether it's left or right or center, there are certain things that you just know. Everybody there agrees they must have a national health service, right? Right?
Well,
so no matter
more or less.
or most, let's say most people, no government, whether conservative or Labour, whether the Conservatives has been able to do it, because there's a social compact that this works. So you can tweak it this way, you can cut the cost that way, you can change it, but they've kept it. That's one area where all citizens seem to agree. So that we need...
Dr. Ngozi, on the subject of healthcare, do you mind if I ask a question?
Sure.
Related to your work with Gavi.
Yeah.
You were talking about basic things, and I think healthcare is one of those basic things that you were talking about that is important. And I just wanted to ask, you mentioned about your work with Gavi and the relationship between the provision of healthcare and economic benefits. When you're going to speak to people, what is the argument you make to try and persuade ministers of finance across the continent about the relationship between investment in healthcare and, investment in healthcare being a good economic decision?
I think that's such a wonderful question, because even as Minister of Finances, I came to realize that as I was doing my job. And here, let me just give you one piece of information. Take vaccines. You know, finance ministers would like to, and economists would like to hear hard arguments, cost benefit. A Johns Hopkins University study just shows that investing $1 in vaccines returns $18 in avoided healthcare costs and benefits. That's the kind of number I put in front of a finance minister and say, look, you should invest in this because the returns are so high. The second example is pointing to what can happen if you don't take healthcare seriously. Let's take Ebola. And what happened? Let's say if you talk to the former finance minister of Guinea or Liberia or Sierra Leone, they'll tell you that that disease and the impact on employment, on people, wiped out percentage points of growth of their GDP. People couldn't work, people were dying. Do you understand? So it is vital and central. And we know that pandemics, if we don't prepare for pandemics, it's going to have a very serious impact on economic growth going forward.
So Dr. Ngozi and ladies, we're right at the end of our chat. Hasn't time gone really fast? We have probably been talking to Dr. Ngozi for a little bit under an hour when we add up all of our pre-show and our main show and our Facebook Live show. The time has gone so quickly. Omar, I'll give you the last word.
I will give you a last word
the
here.
penultimate word.
Yep.
The last word comes from Dr. Ngozi.
That's right. From our online community here, from a fan of yours, Ike, who says Dr. Ngozi was one of the most dynamic, dynamic finance minister. She exudes confidence and intelligence in and out of the office, and we are so proud of her.
Oh, I do have one last question.
Thank you.
When was the last time you raised your voice?
To who?
Doesn't matter.
I don't know. Maybe this morning to my husband.
Oh! Okay. Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, it's been a pleasure having you on this Facebook Live session. It's been a pleasure having you on the stream. Ladies, thank you very much for being part of this special edition of the stream. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.